happened to go to a concert of Ozzy Osbourne. I saw 17,000 kids there. Not a smile in the whole group. Very somber. And it's not music. It's frantic noise. And I saw 17,000 kids that raised their hands like this, which is the sign of the devil, as you know. And they said, Ozzy, 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 Ozzy.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of Diary of the Madman, the ultimate Ozzy Osbourne podcast, where we geek out about all things Ozzy and all things Ozzy related. I am Josh Crum, and with me as always is Mr. Dan Drago. How's it going, Dan?
I am doing great, Josh. How you doing?
Doing awesome, man. Excited to be here again this week. Oh, yeah. Excited to be here again for a cup of coffee. Yeah. Also joining us today is our main man, Ryan Beavers. What's up, Ryan?
Buzz, how's it going? Been way too long. Appreciate you including me in this one.
Yeah, it has been forever. And I got to state right out of the gate, guys, thank you, Mr. Ryan Beavers. I'll be honest, if it wasn't for Ryan's patience and nice words of encouragement, I don't know if I'd continue. And I'm just being honest, Ryan. So thank you so much for being a great friend more than anything. So I really appreciate it.
Like I told you guys, it was kind of, playing my small part was therapeutic during the COVID madness. And so I've been bummed. And again, life happens. We've all been going through our things, and just glad to be back.
Yeah, for sure, because Ryan was the one, like Dan said last week, I was giving him all the time he needed in the world, but Ryan was the one getting irritated. He's like, dude, what the fuck? I'm going to go into our chat and say shit and poke Dan in the side and get him all pissed off and see why he's not, what's going on. Oh, and yeah. I'm always secretly concerned that their friendship was going to break up or that something's going to happen. They're going to get pissed at each other, and they never did. So it was all good. But yeah, I was always kind of all right. And then Ryan actually messaged me that night. I was like, I missed a damn podcast. And I'm like, me too. Then I messaged Dan, and Dan's like, I'm ready. And he was like, oh, okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
Before he changes his mind.
Yeah, no. It's going to be something way more egregious to come, I think, between all three of us.
Yeah, for sure.
Quick story. Anybody that doesn't know, obviously Dan and Josh met in person for the first time last year. And I have not met either one of them, despite me and Josh have been at the same show a handful of times. It just never worked out. Now, Dan's going to be in Chicago for work next month, and I'm going to be 1,200 miles away vacationing with my wife. The exact same dates. It'll be 45 minutes from my house, and still not going to be able to meet up with the guy.
Yeah, isn't that fucking crazy? What are the chances I'm going to be 45 minutes from your house and you're out of fucking state? It's crazy, dude.
I know, and I've been at two Black Sabbath shows that Ryan's attended the same show, and we couldn't get up with each other either time. One time my phone died. We didn't know each other that well then. And then the second time was when he told me he was out busy drinking with his other friends and didn't want to come in and see me. That's a different topic, but whatever. I'm still a little salty about that one. But.
Hey, I will say this, though. Thinking positively, when Ozzy does his Vegas residency, it's on, right?
It's on.
All three of us.
Yes.
With the wives, the whole thing, 3-4 days in Vegas, see him a couple of times.
No fucking.
Got to work it out one way or another.
Hey, guys, real quick before we get into this week's episode, I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Aaron Dangum. I may be saying that wrong. It's Dehghan. But anyway, he was very quick to respond to our last episode and let us know and give us the news that we didn't even realize ourselves that Pantera's set at Aftershock has switched days. So Zakk Wylde will be available to play with Ozzy at Power Trip. So that's actually very good news.
Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, good job, Aaron, and calling us out. And there was another guy, John was his name on Twitter, who also mentioned it a few days after Aaron did. But yeah, that's great. I think that ultimately the big news with that is that Zakk being on stage with Ozzy makes Ozzy more comfortable. And for this return show, he definitely needs to be as comfortable as possible. And anything that makes it easier for Ozzy is great news, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. But what does that do for him playing shit from Patient Number 9?
Right.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, I still believe it, since it's just a one-off, that we're going to see Andrew Watt on stage for those songs, just like we saw before the Rams game. I really hope that's what happens, because it'll really suck if Patient Number 9 and Degradation Rules are not played at that show. The only fear I have, I'm super excited for Ozzy to be on stage, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on and off camera. The same set list over and over and over again gets really tiring. I just don't want 50% Black Sabbath songs either.
But at this point, any set list, we're happy for him. I mean, of course. But
yeah,
I know what you mean.
And I'm bummed to hear that, your guys' auditions didn't work out, but hopefully you're still able to clean the porta-johns, Josh.
Zach's a pretty good player, man. I mean, I gotta give it a hats off to him. I mean, it was a tough competition, but Zach Wild, he beat us out.
Yeah.
I mean, well, what can you say? He's a pretty good player.
Yep. It's unfortunate. I mean, he's all right. He's all right.
Give him his due. He's all right. He's, if you just like all that squilling all the damn time or whatever he does, but whatever.
Hey, I got before we go too far here, I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with you two. My good friends here, Dink and Doink, starting rumors on the internet. If anybody listening to the last episode that I hate Over the Mountain,
You do.
That's not true. That's not true. I don't hate Over the Mountain. But the quick side story, and I've been getting shit for this for a year and a half, is the album openers episode. They reached out to me to give them my own list, and I think Over the Mountain was about halfway or 2/3 down the list.
2/3 sounds about right.
Yeah, and I've been getting shit ever since. But you know what? It doesn't sit up there quite as well as Bark the Moon. I don't know. Perry Mason. I will say that it's probably gone up the ranks a little bit since, but hate is a strong word, and I would not use that for Over the Mountain.
I seem to recall vividly you saying that drum intro sucks.
No, that's one of the greatest drum intros ever. One of the
really
greatest Randy solos ever, but just
one of the greatest Ozzy melodies ever.
all right.
Oh,
One of Randy's
Changed my mind.
greatest
It's number
solos
one.
for sure.
It's also the best closer.
Real quick on Over the Mountain, let me just throw this at you guys, spitball this. Who do we truly believe wrote that intro for Over the Mountain? There's always been some beef over it. Do you guys believe that Lee Kerslake wrote it? Do you believe that it was actually recorded at some point with Frankie Banali and Lee used it? What do you guys think?
100%. I believe Lee Kerslake wrote it.
I'm inclined to think that it's Kerslake, but there's so many things come up over the years that this person wrote that vocal line and this person wrote this intro and this person wrote that. Like, I don't know anymore. And unfortunately, Kerslake's not around anymore to put that to bed. If in fact it is a rumor that he didn't, but I'm inclined to think that it was him.
Are we sure Carmine Appice didn't write it?
He probably did.
Yeah,
Maybe
He probably claims it.
Yeah, he also wrote Rat Salad or whatever too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
But that's a great question, Josh, because
It is. It's a fun debate, right?
it is. And I think that's what the show is really the spirit of, right? Is that sort of shit. I just don't know why his fill wouldn't have been used earlier. Because to me, I don't think Over the Mountain was written before Blizzard. That's where I think the hole in the story is. They didn't have Over the Mountain completed by the time he auditioned. That was a song written for Diary later on in the sessions. They had all their material done. Matter of fact, they had so little material they had to take off. Help me out, guys. Looking at you, looking at me to put on No Bone Movies because that was such a brand new song. If Over the Mountain was written at that point, it would have been on Blizzard of Oz.
Right. I'm one of those people, I always believe the truth is in the middle. So I, for one, think Lee Kerslake wrote that riff. I think that's his creation. But I believe that Frankie, I don't think he's full of shit either. And Frankie's a fucking phenomenal player. Like, no question there, right? I think Frankie played something similar enough that he believes maybe Lee lifted it, and it's just happenstance. Kind of like Randy playing Black Sabbath in the middle of Over the Mountain, right? It's just total fucking happenstance. And Randy didn't like Black Sabbath. Everyone knows that. I think it's probably just more of a coinkydink than anything.
So, but what were they playing? That would be my question. What was Frankie Banali jamming to write the intro to Over the Mountain?
Right. Frankie, Dana Strum, Ozzy, and Randy, that was initially going to be the band, right? That was the plans if they stayed in the USA. I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear what they were jamming on, that he could have played that he believes it was lifted from. I will tell you this, though. A lot of people have not noticed this. I'm sure we've discussed it before. But a quick thing, Bob Daisley's grill tapes, which we're never going to get to hear, unfortunately, except for the clips he has on YouTube. If you go listen to those now, he's had those out now for about 15 years? Because we're on the 10th anniversary just the other day of 13, right?
Yeah, can you believe that?
If you go listen to those clips, you can hear the vocal melody that went on to become God Is Dead in those clips.
Yeah. What was that song called on the Bob Daisley tapes?
I can't remember now.
Yeah, it's eerily similar.
It's dead on.
But can you guys believe that? 10 years tomorrow, well, when we're recording the show, 10 years tomorrow, that 13 has been released. That boggles my fucking mind, guys.
Absolutely amazing.
We were bitching last week, I was at least, and I know Ryan's going to be on my page here more than Josh was. Dude, they don't have a fucking vinyl release of like Peace of Mind, Methodemic. All those extra songs have never been released on vinyl. Why the fuck didn't they repackage that, including the end songs, on a double vinyl package? It would have sold like hotcakes, dude.
100%.
It's free cash. Yeah, it's free cash. Just put them out there. I mean, what you got to lose?
Yeah, the end tracks and then just the bonus ones, Best Buy, all that stuff. You can just 8 tracks, whatever would end up being, do a double-sided. Yeah, it would be huge.
Yeah, it would have been 16
And on top
tracks.
of that, the end tracks aren't streaming, so then it would give people at least a chance to get the download card, right? So if they wanted to put it on their phone or on their streaming site, they can still have that also. So it'd be a double bonus for people who, like me, I upload those CDs. Real quick story, this side story. When Ryan and I were both in Chicago to see Black Sabbath on the end tour, it was night 2 of the tour, and they had the end CDs, and I was like, we got to get to the fucking arena now. Like, I wanted there so early, and that's how I beat Ryan in, because Ryan was out drinking with his friends. That's why we didn't get out with each other. But I went into the arena, and I got the last CD on the shelf, didn't I, Ryan? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
The last one, and I came back to the room. The first thing I did was upload it and send it to them motherfuckers that I'm looking at right now.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing, euphoric experience, dude.
Yep. I remember being in the taxi cab, and I'm like, go, because I knew that, because I had heard that in Omaha they ran out. They played Omaha, Nebraska the night before and had run out of them, and I had heard that, and I was like, fuck.
It's amazing that they limited how many per show that they were selling. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
I still can't believe those are not readily available to stream. There's some good tracks there. I'm sure our listeners have heard them, but if you haven't, they're all online, I'd imagine. I mean, we own them, so I don't really check YouTube, but some really good tunes. I would say this. I think since the 10th anniversary is coming, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring to say we should be doing a full-blown 13 deep dive, including all 16 tracks. It'd be an amazing
episode.
Fun. Yeah.
That'd be a fun. The 13 sessions would be a blast. That would be great. We could even do 2 episodes, maybe, and do one on the actual album, and then the second sister episode that would be on the other 8 tracks.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Josh. Perfect.
So, Dan, before we get into this week's episode, tell us about some news, man. What's going on?
Well, the big news this week is Geezer's book has been released, and unfortunately, none of us have read it. I am planning to get it shortly. Josh and I have discussed, we're trying to find ways to get Geezer on the show. It'd be amazing. We have our contacts out there, but nothing yet. So I would say there's some cool rumors going around. The first one is Geezer came out this week on the 2001 sessions and basically said how much he despised really the material and kind of flippantly said, I think Ozzy and Tony kind of liked it, but he felt Scary Dreams was the best song out of the bunch, which if that's the case, then it's probably not that great, because to me, Scary Dreams is not a great song. And to come out of it, he claims that Jeff Nichols not only wrote the lyrics, but also wrote the vocal melody line, which would be very strange because, as we know, when that song came out, they said specifically Bill Ward wrote the lyrics, and we just assumed Ozzy wrote the melody. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely interesting. I'll just be honest with you. The minute he said, I didn't care for it, but Ozzy and Tony seemed to like it, I thought, okay, I'm back in. Fucking, like, I want to hear these again. Like, right when you're taking me down to where I said, maybe it ain't really worth my effort to worry about these tracks. Well, Ozzy and Tony liked them. I'm like, okay, yeah, bring them back. Because then I picture Selling My Soul or Psycho Man. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's what Ozzy and Tony have in mind, then I'm fucking all down for that.
Both of those songs shit all over Scary Dreams. It's not even close.
No question. Oh,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. No question. And Scary Dreams, I actually did enjoy it quite a bit, but it was just the nostalgia of a new Sabbath tune. And I remember being at Ozfest and being so zoned in that they were playing a new song. But at the same time, like you said, it definitely never really picked up. But that's definitely a holy grail of sessions that we may never hear is the 2001 demos for sure. He said, what, 5 or 6 tracks, right?
Yep.
I don't know about Nichols writing the lyrics. I remember, I don't know if it was Ozzy or Tony or both or whoever. It might have even been Geezer back then, but my understanding was that it was Bill. And if you read the lyrics and then you go on Bill's Instagram or whatever, it is kind of like in the vein of his poetry. Like he kind of has that like macabre, he does have some lighthearted stuff too, but he has a way of writing that I could see that 100% being right up Bill's alley. To your guys' point too, it's a very slow, the meandering song. It never really goes anywhere, and it doesn't do any of those highs, or it never speeds up. We talked about that, like the way Ozzy always likes a song to build and build via God is Dead. That never does it. And I remember seeing it that first time for whatever reason. Ozfest started in Chicago that year, and it was the 3rd song in the set. It's just like,
wow, that's early.
It was weird. Like they opened with NIB. I think they went into the Void, and then that. It's just like everyone's kind of just standing and like looking around, and someone never went anywhere, and then it was just over.
The 13 album did that too. I mean, like you go to the 13 tour, and when they would go into end of the beginning or something, everybody's just kind of like, eh. Yeah. And people just kind of suck for new material.
So when I saw the Pixies a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling you guys this, they literally played their whole new album live, every single track on it. For me as a diehard fan, I fucking loved it because I've seen them so many times that I've seen their hits over and over and over again. And ultimately, they got to do it for themselves. And I think that's where a lot of these older musicians are. And I think it's really cool that some bands out there are like, well, this is what I want to play. Maiden is a great example of that. Maiden does a great job of playing the new material live. I 100% support it.
Well, just watch the bands when they're on stage. There's a whole new juice when they start playing the new tunes.
Yeah. But I also understand the bands that don't. I told you guys I was there for Maiden in Chicago back when A Matter of Life and Death came out. And they opened that and they played the whole album through. And that was like pre-YouTube and all that. Nobody knew. You want to talk about a dead arena.
Right.
It was barely anyone knew the songs as it was. And then it just kind of kept going. And then you get these songs that are 8 minutes long. And it was an interesting reaction.
I think you have to kind of look at it what the tour is. So like with the Pixies, it was called the Doggerel Tour, which is the name of the record, right? And not every spot they're playing every track. You know, one thing about them is you can see them 3 nights in a row and you can see almost a 50% different concert every night, which is really cool, unlike our man Ozzy here. But if you're going to see a show, and it's always been my bitch about Ozzy, like the first time I saw the Osmosis tour, he didn't play one fucking song from Osmosis. It was so heartbreaking. And that's so frustrating. And then as future albums came, you got the maybe 2, maybe 3, if you're lucky, tracks. I think Down to Earth gave us 3. But if you're touring for a specific record, I think you should be playing 4 or 5 new songs off the record. If you're doing a greatest hits or going on our summer tour, then let's play the hits.
Yeah, I agree with that totally, because there's tours and there's album supporting tours, and there is kind of a difference there, and I can go with you on that. I want to back up real quick to what Ryan said about the lyrics to Scary Dreams, though, sounding like Bill's poetry. Dude, you're dead on. You're dead on, because Bill puts that shit out all the time. Yeah. And the whole thing is just a reflection of life, right? There is no getting old, no dying, but you know, it sounds so Bill. I sometimes, like you said the other day to us on our group chat, these guys they're 75, 76 years old now, and the memories are starting to get a touch foggy, I think, sometimes.
I think their memories have always been foggy, if you want to know the truth.
Well, Ozzy's for sure.
Yeah. Dude, they are always inconsistent with their information.
Yeah. 100%. And in one of those interviews, it might have been with the Rolling Stone, I can't remember, but Geezer said that he had a guy like basically come in and like fact checked him a little bit. Well, there's only so much you can fact check.
But that guy was Dan Drago, so he shouldn't be wrong.
Yeah, you can fact check a release date or a tour or whatever, but as far as like interactive memories he may have, like no one's fact checking them sitting in a studio and what came to be. So
here's the irony, and I know Josh is going to relate to this. I mean, I've probably written hundreds of songs in my life, and that's not to brag. It's just the process, right? And I could tell you every song, who wrote each and every fucking part of it, what line, what riff. I could tell you who brought it in, 1,000%, every one of them.
I got to say, I think I'm that way also. But the guy that plays bass in my band, Jeremy, he would tell you a different story. There's times Jeremy will mention a riff, and he's like, I wrote that. And I'm kind of like, thought I wrote that. And then it makes me second guess. And maybe Jeremy's right. I'm not saying he's wrong. But I'm like, oh, I thought I wrote that. So while I'm convinced I remember all these parts, maybe I'm not so accurate either. And that goes to tell you, same thing for like Bob Daisley and these guys. They've been in this for 50 years in this game. When people were like, what bass did you play on, this app? It's like, they don't remember that shit.
No way. I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, it kills me when people act like they recall that. I will say, for me, the most accurate book has been Rudy Sarzo's Off the Rails. If you haven't read that one, it's my favorite. And the reason it's so accurate is Rudy kept a daily journal, and he just references it. Literally, it's a day by day on tour with Ozzy and Randy Rhoads, and it's phenomenal.
Bob also claims that he did keep a daily journal as well.
Yeah.
And I really love Bob's book. I think For Fact's Sake is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind, too, Geezer and Ozzy for years consume their body weight in booze and cocaine, so that'll play a part too.
One more thing about Geezer's book that he mentioned in the same article that Dan referenced there, though, was the 2011 breakup with Bill. And Dan sent us the clip today from Rolling Stone where he kind of opted himself out of the decision and said that he and Gloria were on vacation and came back, and that Ozzy and Tony had made the comment that Bill wasn't up to task with the touring and production of the record and had made the decision to move on from him. And totally takes himself out of the equation of the decision, even backing up on things he had said at the time and saying he wished he had never said them because he was just told this or told that. Just my opinion, kind of a bullshit move. What do you guys think?
I don't like what comes across as revisionist history. And it's easy at this point, a decade plus removed from the very beginning sessions, like, oh, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know, guys. we all know that Gloria, his wife, is his manager also. To think that they weren't somehow involved in the decision of Bill being out, like they just got off an airplane and found out, I don't buy it at all. You might have been on a vacation, but you guys are texting and emailing back and forth the entire time about it. Don't buy it that it's that easy to wipe your hands of it. And it was the evil deeds of, the Iommi and Osborne camp. I don't buy it.
Yeah, he completely backtracked, didn't he? Right. So the irony thing is he also claimed a couple of things in that article, too, that he's officially retired. So that kind of, in my opinion, kills any hope of one last Black Sabbath show with the original members. I still think he'd come out and do it. But, there's a lot of talk of the rumored Blues album that Sabbath was going to do after 13 in between tours. And he kind of talked about that. It never went anywhere because Tony wasn't healthy enough. In my opinion, he's also passing the buck on Tony, where we've been talking about it for years. I don't think he had any desire to continue on doing another Sabbath record. And the last thing, of course, is news that Josh and I broke close to a year ago that him and Ozzy were not talking. We heard that back at the Patient Number 9 show. Ozzy had mentioned it and broadcast that on our show. So now that news is just blown up.
Yeah, the minute we left SiriusXM Studios, like Dan and I looked at each other, and like the first thing we said is like, Ozzy just said he hasn't spoke to Geezer since the last night of the tour or the day after when they did the Angelic Sessions. We both were like, what the fuck? We even talked about it with Jose Mangan of SiriusXM. We talked about it at the fucking Mexican restaurant with him. That was going to be huge news. And Jose even told us that news will help break your podcast. Because when you get that out there to the world, that's going to be massive news. He's like, I heard that too. That's a huge deal. We're like, yes, a fucking huge deal. Ozzy and Geezer haven't spoke. And we put it out there, and apparently Blabbermouth and folks putting our news up ain't fucking important enough because it didn't go anywhere.
Well, and then the interesting caveat to that was that they don't have a problem. It's their wives that have a problem. And we have discussed this, amongst ourselves many times. I am in firm belief that Ozzy would have gotten back together with Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake and Jakey Lee if it was solely up to him. He would sit back, have a beer with those guys, and jam in a heartbeat. But, some people get in the way. And Geezer went and did the same thing. Their wives, Sharon and Gloria, got into it, and now, for whatever reason, they don't speak. It's unfortunate, but it seems all too common.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking to me. And really, Geezer and Bob's comments are very similar, right? I mean, Geezer just said Ozzy's got a huge heart. There's no issues between Ozzy and me. It's the wives. That's what he almost said verbatim. Bob in his book basically said, I really just miss my friend, and I miss hanging out with Ozzy. I mean, two very loyal guys that were with him for years. And I mean, I hate to be on the negative train here, but it's fucking heartbreaking, man. Those guys were a huge part of this. And Geezer played on Osmosis. He did the No Rest for the Wicked tour. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was beyond him, above Black Sabbath. I mean, a fucking solid friend who also stepped in to play bass for Ozzy for many years.
No, it is. It's mind blowing. But, at the same time, it's like, if my friend is sick, I'm going to reach out to him. It takes a real beef not to reach out to your sick friend. And Ozzy expressed during the Patient Number 9 party that we were at that he acted very hurt that he hasn't heard from Geezer at all. He's like, you kind of find out who your friends are. I've heard from Tony Iommi. We're closer now than we've ever been. I hear from Jonathan Davis all the time.
I heard from Bill, he even said.
I hear from Bill. Me and Bill talk almost every day, I believe he said. Didn't something to that effect? So Ozzy seems really bothered. I think Ozzy definitely feels like, maybe he doesn't know the whole story, but he definitely feels like Geezer just doesn't want to speak to him. I think that's fair to say after hearing the way Ozzy said it. As far as the wives go, from what I understand, Gloria and Sharon have always gotten along pretty well. I've actually had the fortune of meeting both of them. They're both actually extremely humble in person. Sharon was way humble in person and really blew me away. And Gloria, when I asked to get a picture with her, she was like, why do you want a picture with me for? Like, she's just blown away. She's not as recognizable as Sharon Osbourne is, obviously, right? So it I think freaked her out. I feel like that for years, a lot of the issue has been that Ozzy and Tony were all down for another album and Geezer didn't want to do it. And I think at some point they got pissed off at each other over that. Geezer said in the Rolling Stone article that he's getting paid a quarter of everything. So that's not bad. He's getting his part. Ozzy and Tony do split the name Black Sabbath, but Geezer's still getting his equal share. So it's not a money thing. He definitely seems like the one that didn't want to be a part of any more albums.
And it's not like Ozzy and Sharon were nefarious on stealing the name from him, because he clearly said he sold his rights to Tony in 1984 for the name. And to me, he got 25% of the money. And you know damn well that he made some fucking coin those last 7, 8, 10 years that they were touring together. And on top of that, I mean, he even came out with Deadland Ritual and said, I forgot what it's like to start up a band. He was used to living in the high life and the Hyatt Regencies and all this other shit. I'm sure he got fucked somewhere along the line, right? I mean, there's something there, but I guarantee he made more money in those last 10 to 12 years than he probably did in his whole career.
To piggyback on that a little bit, I think despite what the fan bases have said over the years and what's portrayed in the media, we can probably all back up in reading many, many, many interviews or listening to many interviews over the years that like almost anyone that's worked with Ozzy genuinely loves him as a person and just misses him. So like anything that's happened, it's just been business, shady, or however you want to look at it. It's been that. And it's unfortunate because I think we were missing out on a lot of things that could have been just because a couple guys weren't able to just get together and do guy things.
Yeah, just hang out. You mentioned that Bob had mentioned in his book, Dan, how much he missed his friend. Ozzy said the same thing in his book. In his book, he does not by any means dismiss Bob's contributions to everything. He doesn't. And he says in his book also how much he misses Bob. So, I mean, clearly these two guys still have a connection. It's funny how everything seems to turn back to Ozzy and Bob all the time, but there are similarities. And, it is kind of a shame when life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go down this wormhole now. I just want to state for the record, there's this misconception that songwriters don't get credit for their work. And the only album that's ever happened on was Bark at the Moon. And we've discussed this, that they took a payout of upfront money. And we know Jake's side of the story. I believe Bob said in his book he advised Jake to take that so he wouldn't get fucked over royalties. But really, Bark at the Moon is the only thing that people didn't get songwriting credit for. Every other album, people are getting songwriting credit for. Every one of them. The one issue that Bob and Lee had was they were not getting performance royalties for the first, for Diary of a Madman specifically. Correct?
Right. That's how I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a writing credit.
It was never about the writing. It was never about the writing credits.
Right.
Yeah. So it's all strange. Who knows? And hopefully Geezer and Ozzy can work this out. But one thing I wanted to go back way back to what you said early on then, that this kind of squashes any Sabbath talk. But Geezer did say in that same article he would be down, not necessarily with Sabbath, but he's down for one-off shows, appearances. So there could still be a Sabbath at a download festival or something big one day. That could still happen, I think.
Yeah, that would be amazing. One-off.
One more thing he mentioned real quick that I wanted to throw out there at you guys before we go on to today's topic. He mentioned the O2 Academy show in 2012 with Black Sabbath. Was it 2012, I believe? Right. It was before they released 13.
Yeah.
And how that was one of the best shows they've ever played. That show was professionally filmed and has never been released. And I have said for years they need to release it. There's a few clips online and they are fucking smoking hot. I think the reason they don't want to release it is that Tony's wearing a wig where he's in the middle of his chemotherapy treatments and stuff. And he looks a little different. It's not awful. He don't look bad. But if you don't know, you'd be like, what's Tony? He looks a little different. But, man, the clips that are online really are hot from that show. And when Geezer mentioned how good that show was, I was like, they need to release that for the world, man. Like, it'd be really cool. And to me, it's triumphant for Tony to be playing that in the condition he was in at the time.
Totally. Hopefully someday. There's so much shit in the vaults, it's going to get released. The funny thing is they did ask him about unreleased material, and I actually don't think Sabbath has a lot of unreleased material from back in the heyday. Very little.
That didn't really happen much back then, right? I mean, not like it does today at all.
Shit, they had to write Paranoid in the studio to fill the fucking album. I mean, that's how little material they had.
Yeah, it's usually just 40 minutes and they're out.
All right, we ready, Josh, for today's fucking amazing topic that Ryan and I are going to team up and fucking pummel you into submission?
Are you guys the Rock and Roll Express or the Midnight Express? Which one are you?
Midnight Express. Always
the Midnight Express. Are you beautiful Bobby Eaton or are you gorgeous Stan Lane? Which one are you?
Oh, beautiful Bobby Eaton. Always. You got to be the heel, dude.
Ryan's a little bit younger. He has no clue what I'm talking about now.
A little bit younger. Dad was in college when I was born.
Starcade 84, baby. Bring it on.
And then I'd be hanging out with the amazing Jim Cornette. So definitely Midnight Express.
Kentucky guy. Jim Cornette, he's around all the time.
All right. So our topic today, we are continuing in the Patient Number 9 discussion series. And today is the fantabulous Mr. Darkness.
Fantabulous.
That's what you said last week, right?
Yeah,
Josh?
fantabulous.
Yeah, fantabulous. I told you that's going to be the new word here. All right, so Patient Number 9's Mr. Darkness, it is written by Ozzy, Andrew Watt, Robert Trujillo, Ali Tamposi, and Taylor Hawkins. So this track features those people on their respective instruments. So we got Andrew Watt and Zach on guitar, Robert Trujillo on bass, and Taylor Hawkins on drums, with, of course, Ozzy singing. All right, guys, you started off. Let's start off with Ryan. What's your initial thoughts of this track?
So I'm going to just throw this out there now, and this is kind of what I alluded to in joking that me and Josh are going to go to war here.
Here we go. All right.
I don't say this lightly because like the shiny new toy of Patient Number 9 is kind of worn, right? I think on all of us now it's part of the canon and we can appreciate it for what it is. Mr. Darkness is my favorite Ozzy track of the 21st century.
Damn.
It is hit me and grown on me and like stayed with me in a way that I just never anticipated. And again, I wanted to make sure, and it's been 9-10 months, that I wasn't just kind of leaping at the excitement of it and the newness. I fucking love it so much, beginning to end. It's so different. It's so unique. I personally think it's one of the most unique songs in Ozzy's like solo catalog. The tempo changes and it has everything. It crosses everything off the list that I love in an Ozzy song. I'm more than pumped for this episode.
I get it, man. I know when we first started this Patient Number 9 series, you told us early on, you said, when you guys do Mr. Darkness, I'd like to be on that episode. So we have known that this one's hit you right from the start. It's definitely a great song, and I agree it does stand out through his entire catalog solo of, like, it's a different kind of track. I love the peaks and valleys of the clean moments with the guitar and stuff. Then when it just really kicks in, and it kicks in like heavy too, you know, just fucking killer. And Dan just gets the biggest kick out of this. You all can't see him, but he is rolling over there right now. Are you okay, Dan? Can you breathe?
I'm good. That was my favorite part of the episode, though. Keep it up.
Yeah. But no, when it kicks in, it kind of grabs you by the balls. I mean, the first time you hear it, especially, it's like, whoa. It doesn't just take a turn. It takes like a U-turn. It's like so fucking quick. It is a great song, man. Gorgeous. My girl, Ali Tamposi, everyone knows I got a crush on this chick, man. Like, everything she writes is gold in my eyes. And I can't wait to dissect with you guys what we think the song's actually about, because that's the true topic of this song for me. But I'm with you, Ryan. I do love it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite song of the 21st century, but I do understand how it stands out. It doesn't sound like any other Ozzy song ever. But Zakk Wylde is the standout performer on the track. Zach's playing on Mr. Darkness is right there with anything he has ever done with Ozzy Osbourne. The tone of his guitar is fucking spot on. And I just love his playing. He's not shredding at all. He's just playing sweet ass fucking rock and roll. And that's the Zakk Wylde I love.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more. And I'm on Ryan's page, kind of. It's in the discussion for me as being the best Ozzy song of the 21st century, along with maybe Under the Graveyard and another song off this album that we haven't gotten to yet, and Holy for Tonight. It's in the discussion for sure. And I think Ozzy is the standout performer on this. This is my favorite vocal performance on the record by far. There is something about Ozzy's voice on this song that harkens back to Diary of a Madman for me. And I don't know what it is, if it's the vulnerability of his voice. Just, it reminds me of kind of like that You Can't Kill Rock and Roll vibe vocally, where you just really feel what Ozzy is singing. And I think that is a highlight of the song. I love the arrangement. I remember specifically when we were in California listening to this first time, Josh, just being like, that was a weird song, but there's something about it that I can't get out of my head. And I think what the weirdness is Taylor Hawkins' performance, which I fucking love, by the way. Everything states that he should have went to halftime on that chorus, because you have that nice, pretty, beautiful acoustic part in the verses. Yep. It's really emotional. And then that heavy chorus kicks in and you expect that halftime feel that most ballads have.
Yeah, for sure.
I hate to call it a ballad, but, you know, that soft to heavy vibe. And instead he plays that straight beat, which is kind of like, whoa, it's like a fucking punch in the face. And it's awesome. Awesome.
Great call. That is the punch in the face, no doubt about it. So
you just raise your hand.
I did. I need to quit doing that. You know why? Because I raise my hand and then I get a kick out of myself, and then I forget what my point is.
So Josh is raising his hand in Skype. You know, Ryan and I are like literally raising our hands to say, I'm going to say something, but Josh is clicking like the fucking raise your hand button.
Savvy,
You're so professional.
Yeah. And then cut to Josh, who's cross-eyed and forgets his thought.
And blurry.
Actually, my thought was, I want to be clear about one thing real quick, just so we know. When I say the standout performer, Ozzy's always the standout performer. I mean, other than the Ozman, you know, that is without saying. Just to be clear, because Ozzy's always a standout performer. He's fucking phenomenal. And he does, you say harkens back to Diary of a Madman. I can kind of see that with this for sure. To me, the vocal performance of the album is Nothing Feels Right. I have a similar in that. The end, that last chorus when he goes up, I just fucking I love it. But I do totally get your point with this track also, for sure.
You said it well, Josh. You said something well. Imagine that. If the peaks and valleys of this song are unreal. There's, again, the tempo changes and all the Ozzyisms throughout. The oh yeahs, come on now, like all of it. And that like downshift, I don't have the musical terminology that you guys have, that hits at 317. It just turns into like another song altogether before it kicks into the bridge. There's so much going on between like the little like keyboards layered in the background. Trujillo sounds phenomenal. I recommend, if you've never like paid attention to it, with headphones on, listen to what Trujillo is doing on the bass, just underneath, kind of dancing around Ozzy's bridge. It just like is sprinkled along in the middle there, and it's absolutely just gorgeous. It's also, to Josh's point, Zach just sounds phenomenal. And you could tell it's right off of what we've discussed, was that Doom Crew sound. He stopped overdoing it, and he stopped stepping all over the song, and he just kind of went to like older Zach, where his solos are complementary. At no point does it step all over the rest of the song. It just fits perfectly. It's clean, it's graceful, it adds so much to it. Sorry, Dan, I know you're raising your hand, but
You're good.
Dan's hitting the raise your hand button now. He's trying to be. I taught him how to do it, so he.
I never knew that I would love Taylor Hawkins in an Ozzy track. I know he's on multiple tracks, but as much as I love him throughout this, he fucking kills it. And I know that there's more out there that we've kind of like touched on a little bit. I really hope we get to hear those someday. I just can't say enough. I don't have a thesaurus in front of me to say any more better words than I have already, but fucking love it.
Man, I'm going to come back to the point I raised my hand on, but you're spot on about the Taylor Hawkins stuff, because in my brain, the three Taylor Hawkins songs, Parasite, Mr. Darkness, and God Only Knows, which we haven't reviewed yet, they're very high on my list. I'll just give a spoiler alert now. I sometimes wonder what could have been if the band was Andrew Watt, Taylor Hawkins, Robert Trujillo, and Zakk Wylde as like his band going forward. That would have been fucking a phenomenal lineup. No offense to Chad Smith, because I think Chad is amazing, but there's just something about the three Taylor Hawkins tracks that I fucking love. So a couple of things about this song. I think this song is the epitome of what Ozzy talks about when he went back to Andrew Watt and said, we were a little too straightforward on Ordinary Man. We want some more dynamics, better arrangements. And I think this song is the epitome of that. How cool is it where after that second chorus, we get that heavy fucking bridge?
I knew exactly what you were going to say.
Yeah, exactly. That heavy bridge. Ozzy sings those come on nows. And then we get a bitchin' lead. And then we come in with another bridge with a totally different riff. And Ozzy sings the melody. And then we have another lead. It's fucking so cool.
And then the second lead is slower and more down tempo than the others. And it's like, fuck. So you have Ozzy doing the peaks and valleys with the song, and then you have Zach doing the peaks and valleys with the fucking guitar solo. And it's like, oh my God, it's so fucking good. Maybe you're talking me into it being the greatest song of the 21st century. I don't know.
That's the point of the show, my man.
It is such a good song, man. It is such a good song. I will say this, I'm not going to reveal my list just yet, but I do know already before this episode was, before we were even tracking this, I knew this is the song that's going to be too low on my list. I've known it for months. The whole time Dan was on hiatus, I knew this was the track that's too low on my list. So I knew the whole time.
I was on hiatus. I love it. Hey,
I did want to say real quick that the Chad Smith thing, I kind of prefer the Chad Smith tracks, to be honest. With all due respect to Taylor.
Yeah, I'm not saying, let me just clarify. I'm not saying Taylor Hawkins is a better drummer than Chad Smith. When the finalists are revealed, Taylor Hawkins tracks are all towards the top.
You just love those tracks.
Yeah.
I was thinking today, I was listening to this track a few times getting ready for the show, and Taylor does a beautiful job of playing his ass off without overplaying his ass off.
Yeah.
Just like Chad.
And in my mind, I thought, to be honest, Chad would probably overplay this. And Andrew would encourage that. They've admitted it. Chad said, hey, am I overplaying? No, you're Chad Smith. Play. I don't give a fuck. And I'm down with that also. But in my head, I was listening to some of those drum parts, and I thought if this were Chad, he would have filled that in more and went maybe a little bit too over the top, whereas Taylor did lay back and serve the song.
Big time. But I will say Chad does serve the song really well on Dead and Gone. Just a future episode, Chad does play that song very much to the song. So one of the things I fucking love about this song, and I don't know if you guys have picked up on it because you really, really have to pay attention. Have you guys noticed in the second verse when Ozzy comes back in that there is a low, very low not only in volume, but low in pitch. Creepy ass vocal mimicking what he's saying. Have you guys heard that?
Yes, 100%.
It is
I don't know
so
if I've picked up on that.
fucking eerie and fucking amazing. It's fucking incredible.
It's one of the points I kind of wanted to bring up because you, Dan, said multiple times throughout listening to this album about how easy it is to cut and paste. But like it's like almost every single time, whether it's a chorus, outro, it's the second verse, like on that second verse, like the second line of it, like Ozzy hits like another register, and then you can hear like the layered vocal. It's just one of my favorite moments on the entire album, and again, one of my favorite moments of the 21st century.
I agree with you there. So when he goes, "Give me my twisted dreams and purpose in life," it's the second half of the second verse, and he takes it up an octave, and he changes the melody, which is very unlike Ozzy. Yep. It's my favorite part of not only the song, but of Patient Number 9. Totally, Ryan. I am on your page.
And then they kind of, as far as like, switching it up, they do it again at the end. As they're hitting the chorus that last time, like he's just belting it out. Unbelievable. And that just fucking ends, and it's so perfect.
Yeah, I acknowledge that last episode that the last chorus of Mr. Darkness is special. Like he really kicks it up another notch. I'm gonna have to listen closer to that low vocal you already.
Guys. I'm sorry,
No,
Josh.
that's
what I was pointing at. I have goosebumps.
I thought you were showing me your cannons. I didn't know.
I literally have goosebumps.
Don't listen to Josh. Josh fucking hates Mr. Darkness.
Fucking awesome. So I will have to listen closer. I will say typically when I listen to this album, it's through AirPods or sometimes in my truck, and those are not your bass. The bass, your tones aren't coming out, and this is more your high end. So I probably need to listen to something a little deeper, but it could be too that I just haven't noticed it to really hear it. So maybe if I listen for it now, I'll really pick up on that. So
you can hear it through the AirPods for sure. Yeah. You just have to know it's there. And I don't know how. I'm sure Ryan, same thing. When I first heard it, I was like, am I fucking hearing that right? It's fucking, It's so cool. And then I rewound it, and it's like, holy shit, that's such a creepy voice.
I love that Dan rewound it, by the way. It's funny though, because like your ears can do that. So like for the longest time on the track with Eric Clapton.
Oh, that's fucking karma, bitch. You made fun of my rewind and you lost your memory.
So on one of those days, for the longest time, like I did not hear it, but the organ is really loud in the mix, not loud in the mix, but really in the mix. Mm-hmm. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. But the first couple listens, you really don't notice it at first. Then once you notice it, it's like, man, that organ sounds really fucking cool. And then like you hear it so well after that every listen. So it's gonna be one of those things that once I hear that and dissect that out of the song, I'll definitely start hearing it after that. So that's cool.
Can I also just say, I went back and listened to Ordinary Man this week as well, and goddamn, the production on Patient Number 9 is just so much better, guys. It is night and fucking day, the difference in production. Hats off, and I think the production on Mr. Darkness is fantastic, but the guitar tone alone, it's just incredible. I think Zach is a god on this track, not only for his lead playing, though, but for his rhythmic.
Well, let's go back to the Patient Number 9 listening party again, because me and Doug, I can't speak for Dan, but I like to brag that we were there, because it was like the greatest day of my life. So
it was amazing.
But we walked out of the studio, and we're like, you got Jeff Beck, who is fucking Jeff Beck, and the world knows Jeff Beck. And you got Eric Clapton, and you got Omi, but we both were like, Zach Wild steals the show. Like, Zach is so fucking good on this entire album. His rhythms sound great. His leads are great. Zach's tone, I'm with you, man. It's spot on.
Well, and as far as sounding better, too, remembering that it was fucking mixed 3 times. Can you imagine being that team or whoever, however many people they switch between, sending it out, and then once, twice, then on a third, like Ozzy fucking hates it. The labor that went into it is there. Well, like you hear it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, for Ordinary Man, the tracks were already cut before Ozzy even heard them.
Yeah.
The music.
Right.
So, I mean, they literally admitted that. They recorded those in a week.
Yeah.
They wrote them and recorded them in a week, and then took them to Ozzy praying that he would like it. And they wasn't even sure he liked it at first. And then he was like, well, when we'll start on vocals. Right. So literally it was kind of thrown together. And that's not a knock. That's actually fucking gorgeous that they were able to throw that together in a week and get Ozzy out of the house. And, by no means is Dan shitting on Ordinary Man, because we know that he loves it. But it's like, production wise, they definitely took their time. There was a reason Patient Number 9 took so much longer. And, kind of like Ryan said, the mix definitely being a part of it. That Ozzy was the one that was so insistent to get remixed, 3 times.
But they got it right. That's the incredible part. That mix is fucking incredible for this record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to add about, Josh, you mentioning the keys like kind of layered throughout. I know I mentioned it before, but both of you put the song back on and then just try to isolate what Robert's doing. It's so beautiful. It's that like low rumble and just like just kind of dancing between verses and stuff like that. And this, but in particular, what he does on the bridge is beautiful.
I would be remiss not to mention that Andrew Watt does play keyboards on this track, and so does Zach Wilde. That's pretty interesting.
A lot of the tracks, I think, are both of them, actually. So it is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of people getting their just due, again, my girl, Ali Temposi. Dan, you want to go over the lyrics real quick with us?
Yeah, this is interesting. I've been dying to do this, and I have been studying my ass off on these lyrics because there are definitely different theories on what this song is about, and I'm in one camp fairly strong. Kind of curious to see what you guys think. Right away, let's get into what we think the song is about. And before I get started, go ahead, Josh.
Let me just be honest. Whatever Dan's opinion is, he's probably going to talk me into it, right?
No, definitely
It's
not.
probably going to happen. Whatever. Let's go.
So before I start, there's two schools of thinking on this track. I really want to come up with a conclusion today on what we all three think it is. So the first conclusion is it's a stalker writing to Ozzy, specifically a letter. And the second is someone writing to themselves, like a Jekyll and Hyde vibe. Okay, those are the two different vibes that have been floating online and that, we've discussed privately. All right, so the first line, before I even start reading, I want to just throw out another Beatles connection, very similar to Paperback Writer, which this song is written. I don't know if you guys, Dear Sir, Madam, right? That's how Paperback Writer starts, written in kind of like in letter form. And again, I think that is done on purpose, very Beatley right there. So the song starts out, Dear Mr. Darkness, I write you again. I've been so lonely, I'm needing a friend. Everyone tells me you'll never reply, but I still try. All right, guys, that's the first stanza. What do we think so far?
I'm with I think there was a second kind of camp that you had mentioned. I look at it as almost like a tag team with the Patient Number 9 track. It almost sounds like a schizophrenia, talking to and reaching out to another personality that really isn't, vibing or answering back to the way that he, and it ties into the kind of manic ups and downs of the song itself. Whether any of that was intentional as far as like the way the song plays out to the lyrics, that's kind of the vibe that I get, that it's a multiple personality thing. And it all kind of ties back to mental asylum, Patient Number 9, help me.
Yeah. So real quick, because I got ADHD like a motherfucker. What was those first lines again?
Jesus Christ.
Well, Ryan's over there going on about his opinion on the whole damn song, and I forgot what the line was. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I zoned out.
I'd be happy to, sir. Dear Mr. Darkness, I write you again. I've been so lonely, I'm needing a friend. Everyone tells me you'll never reply, but I still try.
Obviously, the introduction, right? I mean, this is what we're getting into with this open letter to someone, from someone, right? And like you said a minute ago, the question is from who to who. I think I'm going to say my opinion till the end of the song on what I think, and I definitely want to hear the arguments on it. But yeah, clearly someone reaching out to someone else. Honestly, I never considered. It's weird that you said that a minute ago, that someone had suggested maybe it was a fan writing an open letter to Ozzy. I had never thought about that. They hit me like a ton of bricks. So I got to kind of focus on this as we discuss the lyrics and see what I think about that, because that actually sounds very plausible to me. But now I don't know where I stand on it. But yeah, interesting lyrics for sure. Kind of like Demon Alcohol, right? Where he's it could be someone else singing to him. Who knows? So yeah, let's go on with what the next line says.
Well, we know Demon Alcohol is actually the alcohol singing. It's
right. That's what I'm saying.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So if Ozzy's singing this from a fan's point of view to him, that would be like the alcohol singing to him.
I'm going to point out lines where, all right, I guess I'm going to blow my cover here. I am clearly in the camp of it's somebody writing to themselves. And I personally think that person is either suicidal or not wanting to live. And I'm going to tie this back to Ozzy. And I think Mr. Darkness is his on-stage Ozzy persona, and it's giving him a reason to live, saying, if I can't have that craziness in my life, I really don't want to live. That's what I really think the song is about.
Interesting. Well, since you guys did, I'll go ahead and I've always viewed it as someone speaking internally to themselves also.
Yeah.
So that puts us all three in the same camp. That's where I've always seen it, as an internal, confliction of emotion, personalities, an ugly side of the Jekyll and Hyde.
Right.
But like I said a minute ago, your comment about it being a fan's writing to Ozzy, I definitely want to think about that as we go through this now, because that's an interesting take that I had never thought about.
And you can absolutely make this argument. Listen to this stanza. My walls are covered with pictures of you. I fantasize that you are here in my room. Most days I wake up just wanting to die, but I still try. God, I can't read these lyrics without hearing Ozzy, and it just gives me chills, dude. This melody is so fucking good. Jesus, it's amazing. What do we think of that?
So when I've had this in my mind that it's always been an internal, confliction of two personalities, the line that's always bothered me is your pictures hang on the wall. That's always been the line that I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, your photo's on the wall, but why would he say that? But if it's a fan writing to Ozzy, like me, he's on my wall. I'm sitting here looking at it right now, a photo of Ozzy. Like, your picture's on my wall. That makes total sense, man. So I can definitely see some connections to that got my mind triggered a little bit. So we'll see.
Ryan?
And that's where like the schizophrenia part of it comes in. And for me, I picture endless horror movies that we've watched over the years, like scribbles of like a black figure, like on a piece of paper, and like it's hanging on a wall or it's hanging on a door, and like that's where my head goes. And it's again reaching out to this kind of like invisible entity, which is just another personality. That's what I see when my walls are covered with pictures of you. Like, that's what I see.
What I see is actually very similar to what Ryan's saying, but I actually see Ozzy seeing pictures of Ozzy, covers of his album, his gold records, live shots. My walls are covered in pictures of you. That's the guy I need to be and I want to be.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective too. It really is. It makes sense, especially when you hear, if you paid attention to any interviews that he's given about that whole time, just the recording process, the before and the during of Patient Number 9. He said he wanted to die waking up.
Right.
He's going to wake up because he was in so much agony.
Yeah, and let's just be honest too. When you really think about it, if it's Ozzy singing internally to his own persona of the Prince of Darkness, Mr. Darkness, I mean, that makes total sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the argument, though, of people thinking that they're writing to Ozzy. That
but
he's the Prince of Darkness.
It still could be Ozzy writing to the other
Ozzy.
persona.
That's what I think it is.
That makes total sense then. See, I told you guys, Dan can he bring me around to his side? I had never thought about it as someone writing to Ozzy, and that makes total sense. But Ozzy writing to Ozzy makes total sense also to his other persona. I love it.
All right, so here's the chorus. I give you my heart, but you don't do the same. You tear me apart with a smile on your face. You don't even know my name. So that's the hook, the chorus. Great chorus, by the way, when we jump up in tempo. Josh, why don't you start us? Where do you think the chorus is going here?
That's kind of where it gets tricky, right? I don't know. That's if you're a fan reaching out to Ozzy, like, I give you everything. I buy everything you put out. I watch every show you do, but you don't even know my name.
So that is my argument against it being a fan writing to Ozzy, because Ozzy fucking loves his fans. And to me,
true, this
is somebody trying to say that the person who's stalking the guy doesn't even care about his fans. And to me, that's where I call bullshit. And I don't buy that argument. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is my point to that.
It's a conversation. So it's kind of like the song "Stan" by Eminem, right? Where Stan writes to Eminem the whole time. Then the end. But yeah, I don't know. So it's interesting.
So what do you think the chorus is standing for?
That this person has done everything Ozzy wants them to. They bought their albums, and you mean before I heard this theory of it being a stalker or someone who's a fan?
No,
because that makes total sense.
What do you think? No matter, not before this, like right now, what do you think that chorus is kind of saying?
That has always kind of been the question mark for me. Because if you're talking to an alter ego, I give you my heart, but you don't do the same. You don't even know my name. That never really made total sense to me. That was always part of the question mark for me. That and the pictures on the wall.
I will make sense of it when Ryan is done.
I'm really kind of on the same page as Josh now that it's kind of something to light as far as like maybe thinking that this is some sort of fan letter. I kind of stick to the schizophrenia, almost like a drug thing that Ozzy kind of plays into in lyrics over the years, is just reaching out to and giving your all to something that is like almost like it's an inanimate and it can't do anything for you in return. No matter how much you give to it, like, you're getting nothing in return from it. That has been my perspective. So I'm curious to hear what you think, Dan.
So I think you're almost spot on, Ryan. And again, I'm pretty deep into this. So, I mean, mentally, like, I really am all in on Ozzy writing to himself. So I actually think what he's saying is, I give you my heart, but you don't do the same. How much trouble has that madman persona caused him over the years? Strangled his wife, in and out of rehab, countless drug addictions. Like, he has given everything to be this guy. At the end of the day, this guy doesn't know how to take care of the person who's off stage. Does that make sense?
My name is John Michael, not Ozzy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You don't
Right.
even
I mean, possibly. Yeah. So
yeah.
it makes total sense. And like I said, from the start, I have always viewed this as an internal conflict, but I'm definitely liking opening my eyes to the possibility of it being something different, though. But yeah, it's interesting.
Now, my favorite part of the song, we go to verse 2. Dear Mr. Darkness, I write you again. This time to tell you today is the end. I even shed a little blood on the page. Now it's too late.
I look at that as like the last ditch effort of calling out to this entity, this other persona, this, whether it's literally killing themselves or if it's just like a death and like the separation of this other manic character. Now, looking at it in the terms that you've brought up about him writing to himself, you could look at it as like this sad way of him saying goodbye to his stage persona, and like that the realization that where I'm at in my life, like maybe that guy really is gone. That's not how we want to think. Nobody wants to think that way. But now that you bring it up in that light, I do see that.
Yeah, that's kind of, and I'll go real quick, Josh, because
Yeah.
I that's exactly how I take it, which is he's talking to himself saying, even though that guy has dragged me through the mud, if I can't be him, I don't want to live. And that's so Ozzy, what he's going through right now, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I am ready to spill my blood on the page and say, if I can't be that madman and go on tour, then I just have no reason in my life.
I mean, that's the only way to really take that line. It's definitely like a suicide note for sure. You know, one thing I want to throw out there real quick too. So these people that's like schizophrenic and such, also like they don't view themselves like that, right? Like if you're schizophrenic, like truly, and you have like multiple personality disorder, actually, you know, and you see a photo, you don't see that as yourself, right? So you could technically have multiple personalities and see a picture of yourself and not view it as yourself, right?
Right.
Because sometimes they're women and they're actually a man or whatever, right? I mean, it changes, right? So it could go either way. It's an interesting song. Alex Temposi's a fucking monster, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, so then we get to the second half of the verse, which is definitely my favorite part of the record. Give me my twisted dreams and purpose in life. I'm going to say this line, and it almost brings me to tears because I think Ozzy sounds so good in it. Maybe I'll meet you somewhere up in the sky. That line, just every time I hear it, Ryan, it just moves me. And I can't, if you're a diehard Ozzy fan, you'll understand what I'm saying. Give me my twisted dreams and purpose in life. Maybe I'll meet you somewhere up in the sky. I've never thought that love could bring so much pain. I can't escape.
Beautiful stuff, right?
It is, dude. Fucking so good.
It ties
Temposi. We need to get her. I swear, I want her on the show so bad I can't stand it.
lyrics aside, which are obviously brilliant. Those lyrics only hit for me because of that vulnerability that you mentioned at the very beginning of all this. And that is, I think, what is helped make Ozzy stand the test of time. His melodies is that delivery and that vulnerability. Like, he's not the world's greatest vocalist ability-wise, notes and everything else, but like it's that delivery, it's that raw
emotion.
Yeah, the emotion and the realism that he hits in all of that.
And let's be honest, and I'm not here to rip on singers, but what moves you more? Somebody holding a note out for 30 seconds, or that fucking delivery of maybe I'll meet you somewhere.
What is this? It stands before me. I'm like, God, I'm going to run through a wall right now, boys.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not like those lines, 100%. Josh, that line, the line in Mr. Darkness, that's what you go, this guy is not only speaking to my soul, he's ripping my heart out of like just touching me in no way any other performer can.
I know I make jokes, but in all sincerity, yeah, the emotion and the vulnerability is the key word. Dan kind of taught me that word a few years back talking about Ozzy's vocals, and the vulnerability is what's so colorful and lovable about his vocals for sure. It just, no one can touch him. But in all sincerity, real quick to piggyback on what I said a minute ago about the Black Sabbath line, the same thing with that. That's why it was so scary to me back in 1969 to people. Like that vocal he's not like hitting major notes or anything, but he just has a delivery that is unexplainable, always has. And 2023, he still got it. What's so damn funny that I'm just rambling over here?
No, that you said it was so scary to you in 1969.
Yeah.
You've heard it here first. He's
born
older
in
than me.
1980. I meant to say scary to people in
I know what you
1969.
meant.
And he has kind of an old Southern gospel vibe on that original track, too, that I think kind of was scary to people because it sounded almost like church music.
He wanted to be an old blues singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He never replicated that sound ever again.
Nope.
At that album in general.
I think who else? Steven Tyler. The first Aerosmith album's kind of got a little bit of that too.
Big time. To just end those lines here, to me, again, it's Ozzy saying that the crazy persona has given his twisted dreams and purpose in life reason to exist. And maybe someday he'll meet him up in the sky when it's all over. And I never thought love could bring so much pain. And I take that a couple of ways. Again, what I talked about earlier about all of the damage the crazy persona has done to Ozzy, but also the fact that he can't be that person is bringing him so much pain. So it's a good double entendre. Great lyric. Then we go back to the chorus. I give you my heart, but you don't do the same. You tear me apart with a smile on your face, you don't even know my name. So that's pretty much the rest of the song except for the bridge. A really cool ending. And when you close your eyes at night, we'll be together. I'll be your shadow. You'll never get away. Yeah. And to me, that's just, again, Ozzy saying no matter how much pain, how much destruction that persona has been without him, he's never going to stop doing that. He's always going to be his shadow.
He's going to always be in the shadow.
Yeah, I'll always be in the shadows, and he's never going to get away. What do you guys think?
100%. That line kind of seals it up, right? It'll always be the shadow. That's such a interesting line to say like that. But yeah, I think that kind of ties up your point, Dan. That bridge right there, which, by the way, I love that section. I remember when we heard the track for the first time, at SiriusXM Studios, when Dan and I were invited out for the Patient Number 9 listening party with Ozzy and Andrew Watt and Zach and Billy Morrison.
You guys got to do that?
Anyway, yeah, it was fucking awesome. And
wow, man.
I remember the first time we heard that song, that bridge, and then back into another solo, I was like, mind blown on first listen. Like, oh shit, like they have went there. Like this is different. They've put some serious effort into writing these songs. Did we look at each other? Did we give each other a look? Did we?
Yeah, and I remember going, another solo. Like we were just shocked that we went into another solo after the bridge. It was
because you kind of expected it to kind of move on back to the chorus or something, whatever. And it's like, oh my goodness, this song is freaking excellent.
What do you think, Ryan?
And it ties into what is kind of a go-to topic for Ozzy, which is kind of like that demon that is always, whether it's in his head or sitting on his shoulder, or it's never going away. Whether that's addictions that he's battled over the years, or his just this negative perception about himself, just in general. However you want to kind of twist that around, it's just that demon that's following him around that's never going away. So it ties into just the thematic.
I'm not going away. I'm not going.
The funny thing is, again, and Ryan, you already brought this up, again, the last chorus, Josh, you brought it up last week, but, just those little things make this album that much special. But that last chorus is fantastic. Amazing. Fucking amazing.
Yeah, it picks up a whole nother level right there. It's one of my favorite moments in the album. That last chorus in this song is the top 5, top 6 moment for me on the record. He just goes to a whole nother level, and it's so fucking beautiful.
Overall, I think I still stand very strong that it's Ozzy actually writing to his other persona. Truthfully, listeners, whatever you believe is great, because whatever makes you enjoy the song is what really this podcast is about. And I would say I feel strongly it's Ozzy writing to himself. What do you guys think?
So I was convinced since the album came out that it was Ozzy writing to an alter ego, but I never viewed it as Ozzy writing to Ozzy, like on stage Ozzy, the madman. I never thought about it that way. I just took it as a mental patient writing to his other self kind of deal. But after this discussion today, I'm 100%. It's Ozzy writing to the Ozzy that we all know, the maniac, the wild man, Mr. Darkness. He's the Prince of Darkness. He's definitely, in my opinion, writing to himself. And I think, Dan, you nailed it. He's writing to the onstage persona that he was afraid he'll never get to see again. And that's a whole new light. I mean, it feels totally different now. I've kind of like Ryan said on the intro of the song, he sees it as like patient number 9, like this multiple personality disorder. It's not that. It's the alter ego of Ozzy Osbourne. The madman is back, and it's a good call, Dan. I love it.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I enjoy that perspective too, and that's not to say that I'm leaning that way. I'm like in the middle. I like that it's ambiguous like that. I like that we don't know. I love that it's not so cut and dry. It could very well be that. And I didn't look at it from that perspective, but it's definitely an option. I enjoy that portion of the discussion because we don't know. I really don't want to know. And
that's the beauty of art, right? Like, why does Michael Myers kill? We never want to know why he kills. That ruins everything when we know.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I will say this. I mean, no opinion is right here. I mean, I think it's whatever you personally believe, and that's what I was trying to get at before. But I'm fairly strong that it's at least someone writing to themselves. It's either a schizophrenic, like Ryan has been suggesting, or Ozzy writing to himself. I don't feel nearly as strong about it being a stalker. And I don't know why. To me, it just doesn't feel that to me. And
yeah, after breaking it down, that was such an interesting option at the start of the show when you said that. And I was like, whoa, like I never thought about it like that. And I started kind of putting things together in my head. But the more we dissected it and discussed it, I'm with you, Dan. I think it's Ozzy writing to Ozzy. One last quick question. You don't even know my name, you asshole. Would you have left it or would you have cut it?
Cut it for me, for sure.
1000% cut it. Like, you know that they have a fucking blast in that studio, and like that's just right. Having a laugh. But yes, as brilliant as the song is, I'm not a fan of it ending that way.
Well, it's such a heavy topic. That's why I don't like it. You know, it's not the end of No Bone Movies. He could have kept something funny off Degradation Rules, like I love that. Oh, I just come. I love that at Degradation Rules. But Mr. Darkness is just too heavy of a song, and it just doesn't feel like it fits the vibe for me.
It doesn't. And, you know, it does make you laugh. When we were at Patient Number 9, listening party at SiriusXM Studios with Ozzy and guys, everyone got a big kick out of that. But no, it got a massive pop, right?
It did get a massive pop, and I was kind of shocked, but it totally got a massive pop.
Yeah, so everyone seems to like it. Caden likes it. He gets to be kicked. My son, he gets to be kicked out of it every time.
Probably not listening to the lyrics like we are, right?
Exactly. That's what I was getting ready to say. He's not really hearing the song either, though. So, but I do agree with what Ryan says. They have fun making these albums, and they are just trying to give us their personality. Honestly, half the tracks in these two albums have those little moments in them, right? They sell Tea in Heaven and all that stuff. They've done it for both records, so they definitely enjoy those moments. But yeah, on this one, it does feel just a little bit out of place. I wish they just went ahead and cut it also.
Yeah, agreed. Overall, I do think what I would like to finally say about this track is if you're a listener, you probably know it because you're listening to the Ozzy Osbourne podcast. But if you don't know this song and you're one of these people that frankly like to rip on new Ozzy, this song is fucking incredible, and I think it's as good as most of his career, and I think it fits alongside any song from any album. And I know that's a big statement, but it's how strongly I feel about it. I think this is a classic Ozzy song.
Yeah, 100%. I recommend headphones, turn the lights out, get all of the distractions away, and just immerse yourself in the 5.5 minutes that this track is. And if you don't come out loving at least something about it, be it lyrics, melodies, solos, I don't know what else to tell you. You're just
not an Ozzy fan at that point, in my opinion. I don't know how else to say it.
Oh no, 100%. And and that's not to say that you have to like blow your load about every single track the man ever releases, but like this one in particular, for me, like as I said at the very beginning, it is set apart from anything he's done in a very, very long time. For different reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, Ryan. Like when you guys, I'll just go ahead and tell you, spoiler alert, they're a bit bigger on this one than me. I love it. Uh-huh. But for these two guys, you clearly hearing how much they love this. Like this is Ryan's favorite song of Ozzy in the last 4 or 5 albums. So I mean, like you're hearing it. But I think what makes it's like you said, Ryan yourself, it stands apart. It's written, it's constructed different than most of the songs in his catalog are, and that's what makes it stand out. It's not repetitious in the slightest. This does not sound like any other track that he's ever released.
But it sounds like undeniably a classic Ozzy song.
Right.
At the same time, which is fucking hard to do.
Under the Graveyard did that to me. Like it was a whole new sound, but it's still classic Ozzy at the same time.
But but for different reasons. Like it just you can't even go back to like a Sabbath song that has this many layers and tempo changes. It's so different, so emotional, and just beautiful.
I kind of compare Mr. Darkness to Age of Reason from 13, and I don't think it sounds anything like it, but for me, it's undeniably such a fucking classic. When the Black Sabbath fans rip on 13, I just always think, have you even heard Age of Reason? It's such a fucking incredible song. And I feel the same way about Mr. Darkness in that way, which is when they rip on Patient Number 9, I'm just thinking, are you even an Ozzy fan? Because Mr. Darkness is a fucking classic. It's just so awesome.
I agree, man. I love it. Great track. Let's go ahead and let the ball busting begin. Let's rank it on the album, Dan. This is your favorite part. Lead us into this. Go ahead and let's get it going.
All right. So if you're new to the show, we are ranking. There's 12 songs that we're doing here. We're not counting Dark Side Blues. We're doing a top tier, a middle tier, and a bottom tier. So 4, 4, and 4. This one is clearly in my top 4 by far. What do you have, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's going to be in my top tier for sure.
So,
I guess I can squeeze it in.
Josh, where's it for you?
So for me, Mr. Darkness, I have known from the start is the track that should be higher. Like when I look at my listing and I say, gosh, I got to get Mr. Darkness up higher than that. But then when I look at the other songs, I just can't. I could potentially switch it with Immortal, possibly. Immortal's kind of slipped a touch for me as the album's worn on, a touch. But I'm going to stick with my original. I say Mr. Darkness is middle 4. But it's high middle 4. It's definitely a high middle 4.
Dude, you say that every week, high middle 4. Every week, it's high middle 4. So we got all of these songs are high middle 4.
So we have a listener, Dante Doomsday, on Instagram, who messaged and said, Josh, just to help you out, I went back and listened to the previous podcast and found your Patient Number 9 song rankings, unless they have changed since the podcast. Of course they have, but whatever.
Once we get off this call, you're going to keep those headphones on and you're going to put on Mr. Darkness. And then immediately afterwards, you're going to put on Immortal. And you tell me that your fucking order does not change after that listen.
Yeah. In all sincerity, I don't just say this to be to agree with the group. Immortal has slipped a touch. Immortal was so easy to catch on to quickly. But as time has worn on, like S1, it's gotten a little more tired.
Paint by numbers.
I do enjoy it, though. I have to be honest. I think Ozzy needs to have those style of songs on his record that just rock. Yeah. Like, to me, it's a lot like a No Rest for the Wicked track.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a modern Flying High Again or something like that to me. Like this is how I see it. Is like, not that great, but like it's, this the rocker. That's the one that I could potentially flip those two. Mr. Darkness is definitely a fucking monstrosity. But we'll say this every episode, so we'll go ahead and throw it in one more time. It's just how fucking powerful the album is.
Right.
It's just no good. Dead and Gone legit could be a top 3 song for me, and I have nowhere left to put it but in the bottom 4. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I love that song.
Well, I'm not going to give anything away, but I texted these guys earlier this week, and I mentioned a song that we haven't talked about yet, and I was like, God, even this song fucking is really good. And it's clearly going to be in my bottom 4. And to Josh's point, it's just such a strong fucking record, man. He hit a fucking home run. There is not a weak track on this record.
There's not. Degradation Rules is in the bottom 4 and it won a fucking Grammy. I mean, God damn.
And we would all literally shit our pants and get an erection if Degradation Rules was played live.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question about it.
Don't stand anywhere near us, I guess.
Hey, I said I'd shoot my load. That's the one line my wife heard last week. I came out of the office and she's like, did you just say you were going to shoot your load? I was like, oh, yeah, we're talking about an Ozzy melody. Yeah. Well, thank you, guys. Ryan, thank you so much for being here, man. This has been way too long. And I got to be honest, guys, I know I was on hiatus, but I really am happy to be back. And you guys are awesome and some of my best friends. So thank you for everything. Ryan, do you have anything before we wrap it up?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm glad it's back. I'm glad the engine's roaring again, and glad that I was able to be a part of this one because it's going to go the rest of my life as a top middle 4 song.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I got to give Ryan some props. He's wearing a Downtrend shirt right now, which is my band. That's kick ass. He did design the shirt, so he's probably more promoting himself than the band, but whatever. But either way, it works. So appreciate that, dude.
No, it was for you, but after this fucking episode, I'm probably just gonna donate it.
Gotcha.
You don't like Over the Mountain. I don't care what you do.
Jesus Christ.
Good point. So 2 things real quick. One, Josh, make sure you listen for that eerie second voice in the second verse. It's really cool. Listeners too, try to find that voice. It's really fucking killer. And second, a little self-promotion here. My new single from my new band, Without Fear, debuts this Friday. So it's going to be on Spotify, Apple Music, on every streaming platform. Yes. I'm super excited about it. So please just take 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes of your time and listen to my brand new song. It's called Bridges. I'm super excited about it.
What's the name of the band again?
Without Fear. Without Fear. Yeah. Thank you.
Love the title too, man. It's killer.
That's awesome.
All right, guys. With that said, until next time, we'll see you on the other side.
I'm not gotten what I need from you, and so I
Did Ryan just fart on the show? What was that?
no, that was my phone. Did that got picked up?
Yeah, it picked up.
Sorry.
That was awesome.
Kind of like
Literally
this.
sitting right next
Dude, you should have seen my face. I was like,
I did see your face. It was wonderful.
fuck. All right, Ryan, I didn't hear a half a thing you said once the fart noise happened. I was like a 12-year-old boy again.
Thanks for coming.
No, thank you for coming.